Hey there, welcome to episode 115 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is just all the new toys I've got in the last couple of weeks. I feel like I've got a whole lot of stuff that I haven't shown you guys yet. And it hasn't been that long since I posted a video. I posted a video just 2 weeks ago, but that one was specific to showing you just my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimates figures. And the video before that was just showing you my Snake Mountain figure. And typically I don't do videos where I just focus on one particular brand. I get so much new stuff that I do so many videos that are just kind of catch-alls where I'm showing you all my new stuff. And I've been buying new stuff these past couple of weeks, but because the videos I put up were focused on those two specific things, I've had this other stuff just kind of piling up on the side. So this episode is probably going to be a bit of a patchwork episode because I like to film things and show them to you guys when I have them like inside the box, and then I open them up and then I shoot some more video with the thing outside of the box. And I've gotten in the habit now, because I know I'm not going to shoot these videos necessarily the same day I get my toys. I usually will get the toy, I'll bring it down here, I'll shoot it in the box, and then I call it a day and I open it up, and it could be days or even weeks later before I film the other half of the review and show you the item outside of the box. So that's what I'm dealing with now. I've got, I think, nearly an hour of footage of stuff I've shot inside the boxes from over the past month. So I've got to show you all that. And then I've got this big pile of stuff here that I just got in the last week or two, and then I just got a big box of stuff just today. So yeah, I don't really know how I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to show you everything that I actually presently have in the boxes. Some of the other stuff that I shot over the last couple of weeks, that stuff's already opened, and maybe I'll splice some of those reviews into this video as well. But depending on how long this runs, I might just have to stick with what I have right here, and then we'll push all that other stuff back until later. So yeah, let's dive into this. It's a little bit of everything. So first thing I've got is some Funko Pops beside me here. So I'm a big fan of the Universal Monsters, which is Frankenstein, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and of course Dracula. So I collect figures of the Universal Monsters in various formats. I've got some 6-inch action figures. I've got some 8-inch Mego dolls. I've got some of the little 3 3/4-inch reaction figures, and then I also have some Funko Pops. So for example, over here is a Dracula Funko Pop based on his look from, the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi, which is what people think about when they think Universal Monsters, Universal Dracula. But I'm also usually a fan of new versions of these films. I really liked the modern Wolfman movie, even though it was kind of a cinematic bomb and most people don't like it too much. It was still a Wolfman, and I thought that was really cool. So I liked the new Wolfman movie. I even liked the new Mummy movie with Tom Cruise. Again, everybody hated that movie. It didn't do very well. Its lack of success seemed to kill the whole shared monster universe they were planning, which is a shame. But I typically like these newer versions of these old movies. So when it comes to Dracula, I'm a big fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula that was filmed by Francis Ford Coppola in the 90s. So yeah, I've always liked that movie, and they just put out some Funko Pops from that movie. And so yeah, I picked them up. So here is Dracula in his armor. So the armor was kind of this musculature, it was really cool looking in the movie. So yeah, you can see that there was 3 different Draculas, and Van Helsing as portrayed by Anthony Hopkins. Gary Oldman played Dracula. If you haven't seen that movie, I recommend you do. So I didn't pick up Van Helsing. I was tempted to, but I have way too many Funko Pops, and I'm trying to cut back on them a little bit. But I really love Dracula, and I couldn't decide which one I wanted, because the armor is really cool and really unique to this film, so I picked up that one. I also picked up kind of young Dracula in his top hat and fancy spectacles. So this was a really cool Dracula as well. And then old Dracula in the movie had these very distinctive buns in his hair, and I kind of felt compelled to get that one too. So I got all 3 different Draculas from Coppola's Dracula film. So that's pretty cool. And last Funko Pop I have here is I got what's his name? Andy Stitzer. So that was Steve Carell's character from the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which was it's a great movie. I loved that movie. Maybe as a toy collector, I related to it a little bit. This guy was a toy collector, and you can see even in his hands there, he has a little action figure of his own. That is Oscar Goldman, who his friends make fun of him for having an action figure of the $6 million man's boss. So, yeah. So that's pretty cool. So that's the Funko Pops. What else have I got here? So I've got... I'm dropping things. So I got the Rocksteady from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is his reaction figure from Super 7. So there's a bunch of these figures. I think there's 2 or 3 different waves of them. On the back, you'll see that there's the 4 turtles, Bebop, Rocksteady, Shredder, the Foot Soldier. So this is all wave 1. They've since made Casey Jones, the turtles in some other weirder outfits, Baxter Stockman, stuff like that. Now, I really like reaction figures, but again, this is another thing that I have too many of, and I don't have room to display them all. You can see I've got reaction figures kind of pinned up to my wall here as I try and find a home for them. So when it came to these, I decided I was only going to get my favorite character, which was Bebop. So I bought Bebop months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point, and I have that tacked up on my wall over there somewhere. Now, my local comic shop where I do all my local nerd shopping is Strange Adventures, and they have a location here in Halifax, which is where I shop, but they also have like a sister location at Dartmouth, which is like kind of a smaller sister city to Halifax on the other side of the harbor. So every now and again, the owner of Strange Adventures Halifax, when he's putting items up for sale and stuff, he tends to ship all that stuff over to his Dartmouth location, which has a lot more of his discounted products and things like that. So he posts things on his Instagram, and he posted this Rocksteady that he was selling for half price over at his Dartmouth store. So I thought, well, I already have Bebop, so maybe I should add Rocksteady. They might look pretty good pinned up there together. So I went and grabbed him. So while I went over to the Dartmouth Strange Adventures specifically to get Rocksteady, I did try and make the most of my visit and see if there's anything else that was discounted that I might want to pick up. So they also had this Marvel Legends Iceman. This is from the X-Men retro wave, where they put them in these retro style packaging to look like the 90s Toy Biz X-Men figures. So this figure had come out quite a while ago, and I don't have an Iceman in my collection, or I didn't until I got this guy. So I considered picking this guy up, and really there's not much to Iceman. He is just like a naked white guy. So this figure should fit the bill. What more do you really need? But when I saw it, this was $30, which is standard price for Marvel Legends around here. But Iceman's not exactly one of my favorite characters, and I didn't think this figure was quite right. I don't think he looks snowy enough. Maybe he needs to be a little whiter, less... I don't know, he kind of looks almost silvery to me there. So I thought, you know what? I'm not going to pay full price for this guy. I'll either get him when he goes on sale, or I'll wait for them to repaint this into a color scheme I like a little bit better. So I passed on it. Now, in the meantime, this is no longer readily available, at least not in my area. I used to see it everywhere, but now it's gone from the pegs, and I wasn't too concerned about it. But then the other week, I got the new Firestar Marvel Legend, and I haven't showed that to you guys yet, but I have already filmed her in box earlier, so maybe I'll plug that in here somewhere. But anyway, this was my first Firestar Marvel Legend, and if you're familiar with Firestar, she was a character that was introduced on a cartoon before she ever appeared in a Marvel comic book. And it was a Spider-Man cartoon that ran in the early 80s. And it was probably my introduction to Spider-Man. It was a cartoon called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And it featured Spider-Man, Iceman from the X-Men, and this character Firestar, who all, I think lived together and solved crime together. And they had this secret laboratory. It was weird. It was a weird take on Spider-Man. But I didn't know any better as a kid, so I just thought, sure, Iceman and Firestar are Spider-Man's best friends. So that cartoon has always kind of held a little soft spot for me, even though I haven't seen it since I was a little kid. But when I got Firestar, I was then kicking myself thinking like, oh man, I wish I had Iceman now, because now I'm going to take some photos of these figures for my Instagram, and I should have got that Iceman when I could have. Anyway, not long after that, I went to Strange Adventures. They had the Iceman, and they had him on sale. Everything over there is half price. So yeah, I scored this guy for $15, and it was perfect timing. So now I have Spider-Man and his amazing friends. And the last thing I got at Strange Adventures was this Pacific Rim figure of Gypsy Avenger. Now, I'm a big Pacific Rim fan. I have all the different characters from the first 2 movies. But when it came to collecting the Jaegers, I preferred the ones that were made by Bandai. They were a little smaller, maybe a little more posable, as opposed to these ones here from Diamond Select Toys. So I bought most of the characters from Bandai, but Diamond Select did make a couple additional characters that Bandai never made. So I bought the Bandai versions, I bought the Diamond Select versions of those guys. And when I did, I was actually pretty impressed with the Diamond Select versions as well. And over time, I've kind of gone back and I bought Obsidian Fury in the Diamond Select version, even though I already had the Bandai, because I was like, you know what, this character is so cool, I kind of want him in both versions. And so yeah, I already have the Bandai version of Gypsy Avenger, but when I saw him there for half price in this Diamond Select version, which I do not have, and I had just finished watching Pacific Rim the Black on Netflix, so I was kind of like in a in like a Pacific Rim kind of mood, and it's kind of a bummer that there's no figures to buy yet from Pacific Rim Black. So yeah, it was literally like the day after I finished watching it, and there was this guy staring me in the face, half price, and I was like, sure, why not? So another Pacific Rim figure. So that's everything from Strange Adventures. Another thing I picked up is kind of like with those reaction figures where I said, you know what, I'm only going to get my favorite Ninja Turtle reaction figure because I am trying to cut corners. I know it probably doesn't seem that way to my regular viewers who know how many friggin' toys I get every week. But trust me, I would like to buy a lot more, but I try and resist when I can. So with Ninja Turtles, I have the whole gang of 4 from NECA in the animated line, and I'm getting all 4 of them from Super 7 in their Ultimates line. I also have older versions of the Ninja Turtles from the original toy line in the 80s. I also have the 2012 versions. So when they put out versions of the Turtles from the 1990 live-action movie, I thought they looked amazing. And I really liked that movie, but I thought, this is going to cost me, these figures are $30 a piece. I'm going to be in for $120 again to get another set of 4 Ninja Turtles, and I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to buy just my favorite turtle. That way I can have something to represent the movie on my shelf, but yeah, I'm not going to go crazy. So I only bought Leonardo. He's my favorite turtle. And I've had that figure for quite a while. It was on my best of list for 2019, so that gives you an idea how long I've had it. But anyway, my buddy Miguel was over here the other day. I was showing him some of my figures in the display cases, and he looked at that Leonardo and he's like, dude, you got to get the other 3 turtles. You can't just have one turtle from the movie there. And I was like, I know. Fortunately, these things are still readily available. I see them everywhere. So I went out and I bought the other 3 turtles from the movie. So there's Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo. So I haven't got around to opening these up. I've had them for over a week now. But yeah, it's nice to know that I do have all 4 turtles in the movie versions. Okay, so that was everything I got in the last couple of weeks. Now I'm going to show you what I just got today. So earlier today, I got a call from EB Games, which is like GameStop here in Canada, and they let me know that a couple of my Transformers pre-orders had come in. So these are some Transformers Kingdom figures, and I'm glad that I pre-ordered them, because these are regular retail release figures, and I would expect them to be plentiful, but I haven't seen these figures anywhere in stores yet, like not in Walmart or anything. And there have been a couple of waves of these current Transformer figures, which seem pretty elusive. Like, I actually pre-ordered Sunstreaker from the same store, like months and months ago, and I still haven't seen that figure. And that's from, several waves before this one. So I don't know if I'm ever going to see that Sunstreaker. I don't know. But anyway, so these two here I'm pretty excited about. So this is Huffer. So he is this little orange truck. He is one of the original G1 Autobots. This was a guy I had when I was a kid, and I really liked him. And I don't think Hasbro has ever really done him justice with a good solid figure. The original one was really small, so most of the later versions they've done have been pretty small as well. But other small characters like Bumblebee and Cliffjumper and Warpath, they've kind of bumped up in size and made more deluxe versions of. But we've never got a good Huffer. And this guy here looks awesome. I'm really excited to finally get this character. There you get a shot of him here. But so we'll pop him open and take a look at him later. But the other one I got is Inferno. And this is another one that I had as a kid, and I'm really excited to have a new version of him now. He was just, I had both Inferno and Grapple when I was young, and they were very similar figures, not quite repaints, kind of more of a retool. So the bulk of the figure was the same, but where Grapple had a construction crane on the top, Inferno had a fireman's ladder. So they were very similar, but they had some parts changed out. And I loved those toys as a kid. I loved the way they looked, but they weren't very movable. They were very stiff, very rigid, and I no longer have them. And so I've been waiting for new versions of these guys for a long time. I got some versions of them about 10 years ago, and they're decent figures, but they're missing some of the key features that I expect from these guys. You'll notice he has this kind of, I don't know what you call that, around his head. You can see on the box, the actual toy, he's got this whole kind of harness around his head. And, that's just kind of part of the character. That's how they looked in the cartoons. That's how the vintage toy looked. So when I got versions from 10 years ago and they didn't have that same setup, they just didn't quite look right. So a couple of months ago, I got the new Grapple, and I thought it was awesome. It was this close to making my best of 2020 list. I ranked all my toys, and I think it landed around number 22 or so. But anyway, I really liked that figure, and I knew we'd probably get an Inferno not long afterwards. It's finally here. I think this one might be even better than Grapple, so this guy stands a pretty good chance of making my best of 2021 list. We'll check him out a little bit later as well. So besides the stuff I got from EB Games, I also got a box in from Big Bad Toy Store, which is the online store where I do a lot of my shopping. So here it is. It's a big one. I haven't opened it yet, so you're going to open it with me. Yeah. So you're going to be opening and seeing what's in here with me for the first time. Now, normally, I don't like to order boxes this big because when a big box like this comes in, I tend to get dinged at the border for paying customs charges. If little boxes come in, they often kind of slip past and I don't have to pay anything additional. So one thing I like with Big Bad Toy Store is they have a pile of loot option, which means when you pre-order something and then it comes in, or even if you buy something that's on the site now, they don't make you buy it and pick your shipping and send it out to you all in one fell swoop. They allow you to say, pay for this item. Do you want to put it in your pile of loot and save it? That way you can let a couple of things pile up and then ask us to ship once everything is together. Because you can definitely save on shipping. If I was paying shipping on every single toy I ordered, I'd be going broke way faster than I am now. But fortunately, Big Bad allows me to pile up 5 or 6 figures and then I ship them. And shipping is only $20 or something for those 6 figures as opposed to $20 for each individual figure, which it probably would be to Canada. So with this box, I had a bunch of pre-orders, and usually when 5 or 6 items come in, that's when I say, ship my loot now. But what caught me off guard is just one day I got 12 emails that said, all these pre-orders are in stock. So boom, 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 boom. They all went to my pile of loot. And I was like, oh shit, I already had 4 items in my pile of loot. So now I've got a whole bunch of stuff that all was there at once. And I don't think there's an option for me to ask them to break it up. So I kind of just said, ship now before anything else goes in there. And so that's why I ended up with such a big box here. So let me get this out of the way. We'll slice her open. and we'll see what's in there. Okay, got my knife. Let's go. Okay. So lots of packing bubbles. Big Bad is always very good about packing everything securely. All right, so right off the bat, first thing I see here is a new Mythic Legions figure. It's been a long time since I've got one. I have got a bunch of Mythic Legions on pre-order. I think I want to say like 10 figures from 2 different waves that I paid for more than a year ago on some of these things. But the way the Four Horsemen who make these figures, they did the first couple lines as Kickstarters, and after that they just did them as regular pre-orders. But they're kind of made to order, so you've got like a certain window where you can pre-order them, and then that's when they start making them. And it, at best, usually takes about a year turnaround from when you order them to when they make them. But when COVID hit, that really seemed to slow things down, and some of their various lines have seemed to kind of bottleneck. So yeah, it's been a while since I've got a new Mythic Legions figure. Usually I buy them directly from the Four Horsemen, but this one here I was able to get from Big Bad Toy Store, although you do pay a bit of a premium. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but I want to say, if I bought this figure from the Four Horsemen directly, it might cost me like $40 US. But when you go through Big Bad, it's like $50, $55 US. So you are paying a bit of a premium. But this guy here is pretty cool. It might not be easy to tell from looking at him, but so he's kind of like this knight. Mythic Legions is an original toy line. They're not based off anything in particular. The Four Horsemen have kind of come up with this whole little storyline. There's a bit of a blurb on the back that explains it, and you can see some of the tie-in figures, and you get some nice artwork, and it's a really cool toy line if you're not familiar with it. But there's a couple of these figures. Also, if you're not familiar with the Four Horsemen, they are the toy designers, sculptors, that have worked on a bunch of probably your favorite toy lines, including Masters of the Universe Classics and the 2002 Masters of the Universe. So they seem to be they have a good relationship with Mattel, and Mattel seems to let them get away with this, is they've been repainting a lot of their Mythic Legions figures in He-Man colors. So I already have a version, like a Mythic Legions version of He-Man, of Skeletor, of Trapjaw, of Battle Cat. This one here is Hordak. So he's painted in Hordak's blue, black, and red. And even though that helmet head doesn't necessarily make you think Hordak, you can't see it in there, but he's got an alternate white vampire head, which looks a lot more like the Hordak we know and love. So yeah, you'll be able to see that better once we get him open. But yeah, so pretty cool to get one of these guys. Next up, I've got a Star Wars Black Series figure. So this is Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now this is a figure who, if you're a casual Star Wars fan, you might not be familiar with this guy. He originated in the novels, so he's from the expanded universe. Then I think he appeared in some of Dark Horse's comic books, I believe, and he might have even been in some of the video games. But I didn't read Dark Horse, I don't read the novels, I don't play the video games, so I didn't know this guy. Now Hasbro had put this guy out in the Black Series, this exact figure, a couple of years ago. I saw it once in the store. Now at the time, I didn't realize it was going to be something that I would never see again. So I saw it, and I passed on it. Though I did consider buying it. Now, why? I've made a rule to myself when it comes to Black Series not to buy old men in robes and stuff. I just have too many smaller Star Wars figures. So when the 6-inch figures came out, I said, you know what? I'm just going to buy robots, aliens, stormtroopers, cool looking stuff. I don't need a bunch of, Obi-Wan Kenobis and things that I already have millions of versions of. So Grand Admiral Thrawn, he falls into he's an alien, so he meets that category, but he's basically just a blue dude in a suit. And so yeah, it's kind of torn. He's like, okay, for one, he's just a blue dude in a suit, but he is an alien. I know he's a character that of some importance in the expanded universe. And he's a character that I don't have any figures of in the smaller format. So it's not like an Obi-Wan Kenobi where I'm buying my 10th, 12th version of Obi-Wan. So I passed on it the one time, and then I regretted it, partly because he then appeared in the Star Wars Marvel comic books, which I do read. And after reading his mini-series in the Marvel universe, I was like, man, I should have got that guy. He is pretty cool. But then he was really expensive on the secondary market. Fortunately, Hasbro was releasing some of their more popular, harder to find figures in new packaging. So it says Lucasfilm 50th anniversary. So I'm not sure what other figures are included in this line, but I'm glad he was. So I was able to track him down in this new packaging. So there you go. Now, next up, I've got a bunch of He-Man. This box is mostly going to be He-Man figures. And I'll tell you what, even if, because I might just shoot this video and say, look, I showed you everything in the boxes, let's call it a day, and we'll do another video later where I show you out of the boxes. But even if I do that, I'm not going to bother showing you the He-Man outside of the box. I'll show you them in the boxes in this video, but there's just too many of them. I think I am going to have to separate them and do a separate Masters of the Universe video. But yeah, so here's He-Man from the new Masters of the Universe Origins line. Now, just a little bit of history on these guys. So after the Classics line ended, which was, the taller, more detailed 6-inch line that the Four Horsemen helped design, Mattel, who owns He-Man, took the license back, and they said, we're going to do our own little line of figures based more on the vintage toys, geared more towards children. And they came out in 2020, and they were exclusive to Walmart. So I thought, okay, fine. That's better than being a Target exclusive or something, because I don't have any Targets around me. I don't have any Walgreens. But Walmarts I have plenty of. So I was like, sure, make them exclusive to Walmart. I'm sure they'll be affordable, and I can find them. I couldn't find them anywhere. I looked high and low. So He-Man, of course, was from Wave 1. He's the most important character. I have never seen Wave 1 at retail, even now. And into 2021... Mattel, the exclusivity agreement with Walmart ended, so now these figures should be available anywhere. So that means I should be able to find them at EB Games or even specialty shops like Strange Adventures. But yeah, still haven't seen these anywhere. Nobody seems to be carrying them. I don't know what the deal is. I was hunting high and low for months and months. Finally, the week of Christmas, I was able to find some of the Wave 3 figures. So that was Merman, Roboto, She-Ra, and Zodak. So it was great to get those figures. Merman's my favorite character from Masters of the Universe. But it's still very frustrating to think, like, okay, well, here's Wave 3. So where's Wave 1 and 2? And am I ever going to see Wave 4 or Wave 5? So fortunately, Big Bad Toy Store is carrying them. So I just went ahead and ordered everything, because they had Wave 1, 2, 3, 4, I think up to Wave 6 available for pre-order. So I pre-ordered everything from them, assuming that the availability wasn't going to get any better locally, and it hasn't. So anyway, finally, I've got my Wave 1 He-Man, and he looks great. Now, I have since got the Battle Armor He-Man, and I have the Prince Adam already, so I kind of know what to expect. He's very similar, but this is He-Man in his classic outfit, classic packaging, some original artwork on the back. So yeah, great stuff. Happy to get him. Also, Skeletor. So I have Battle Armor Skeletor already, but this is kind of classic Skeletor in his better known outfit. Again, some nice original artwork on the back there. And yeah, so you see all the figures in Wave 1. Beastman, Teela, Man-at-Arms. I think I have all those guys in this box here. I don't know. What else we got? So now this guy is from Wave 2. So here is Manny Faces. So if you didn't have this guy when you were a kid, his whole gimmick was you turn this little knob on the top of his head there. And he has 3 different faces. A human face, a robot face, and a monster face. So there you go. Some great artwork showcasing his different looks. And yeah, this guy's really cool. I'm happy to get him. Here is, so from Wave 1, there's Beastman. So that's really cool. So he's got his, like, I think, whip accessory in there somewhere, maybe. I can't see it in there, but you can see on the back of the packaging. Shows you how he holds his whip. Got some original artwork there on the back. Looks great. So that's really cool. Here is Teela, also from Wave 1. So she's got her snake armor. Similar body to what we saw with She-Ra in Wave 3 already. But that's pretty cool. It's got her original artwork there with her fighting merman. Great stuff. Here we go. Scareglow. This guy's a fan favorite. So this guy glows in the dark. Another skeleton warrior. And yeah, great artwork on the back there. And if you watched my Snake Mountain video from a couple of videos ago, you'll know I bought this gigantic Snake Mountain from the Classics line. So it was intended for the larger figures. But I have decided to display it with my Origins figures on it. And my Origins collection has been pretty small up till now. I've got, about 6 or 7 figures over there. So this is definitely going to help me populate my Snake Mountain. Alright, then I've got Evelyn. So also from Wave 1. So I think the only one I'm missing so far is Man-at-Arms. So again, I think probably the same body as Tila. So she's the evil sorceress that works with Skeletor. Nice artwork there. And then, another fan favorite, Trapjaw. So this guy's very cool. He's got that mechanized jaw and the robotic arm, which has different attachments. You can see on the back of the package how it tells you how you can attach different things to his arm there. So yeah, they're kind of tucked in behind him there. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little baggie full of extra little hand accessories in there, so that's pretty cool. So I'm excited about him. To be honest, he's probably the one I was most excited about out of all of these guys. It's probably between Manny Faces and Trapjaw. Here's the one I was least excited about, Orko. So, this guy was the comedy relief in the cartoon back in the 80s. He's like He-Man's little magical sidekick. Never particularly liked him. And, he comes with this little purple, you can see the purple blob behind him. He's a character that just kind of hovers around in the sky. Like you'll see there in the drawing, how he just kind of hovers. So what that purple cloud is, it's a base with a clear peg, so you can display him on there so he can just hover. So that's cool. And to be honest, I might not have even bought him. I'm glad I did, because I would hate it if I didn't buy him and then he became really hard to find, and then I was kicking myself. But with some of these figures on Big Bad Toy Store, you could only pre-order them as a full wave. So with these guys, Wave 2 was Manny Faces, Scareglow, Trapjaw, and Orko. So I obviously wanted those other 3, so I pre-ordered the whole wave. But Orko was kind of lumped into it. If I could have ordered them separately, I might have skipped on Orko. Maybe. Who else we got? And here we go. Last one, Man-at-Arms. So this one looks a lot like the vintage Man-at-Arms figure I owned, except one thing that bothered me and probably most other fans is that he was heavily featured in the cartoon, and he always had a mustache. But the vintage figure did not have a mustache, and it always seemed really weird. So this one here, it looks a lot like the vintage toy, but he has a mustache. And on the artwork, you'll see the mustache in action again. And yeah, so there you go. That's a pretty good size Masters of the Universe collection. I think there's 10 figures there in total, so that's great. And 2 more things in this box. So these are some Transformers figures that I'm pretty curious about. So if you've seen me show you any of these Selects figures before, or if you're just familiar with them, the Selects is a line that Hasbro does of Transformers, and they just sell them in these weird, like, blank brown boxes with no details, no pictures of the figure. So if people saw them in stores, they'd be like, what are these things? Who is this character? Because it's obscure characters too, so it's not like it says Optimus Prime and people could be like, oh, I know Optimus Prime. Their names like Cordon and Spinout and stuff, and you're like, who are these? Why would I buy this sight unseen? So they're usually intended for online exclusives, I think, to be sold through Hasbro's own website, Hasbro Pulse, but they do show up here at EB Games and stuff. Now, I usually know who they are, so I buy them, but I always find it strange, the packaging choices. So these figures here were listed as selects, but they're a different category. They're from Takara rather than from, which is, I won't even try to get into it, but Takara is kind of like the sister company, I'll say, to Hasbro. It's like the company that made Transformers in the 80s, and then Hasbro like licensed the toys and brought them over to America and made them Transformers. They weren't called Transformers when Takara made them. They were a bunch of different lines. So they made a line of transforming jets and a line of transforming cars and a line of transforming dinosaurs. And they all had different names in Japan. Hasbro came and said, can we buy all those toys from you, those molds and stuff, and use them in America? And they created the whole like Transformers mythology. And so yeah, ever since then, I don't know the exact relationship, and I don't want any hardcore Transformers fans telling me I'm getting anything wrong. But basically, toys nowadays, there's like a Hasbro version available in North America, and then there's a Takara version available in Japan, and probably elsewhere overseas. And they tend to be a little bit more expensive and a little bit more higher quality. Takara tends to use some die-cast metal in their toys, where Hasbro just uses plastic. So yeah, I think if you're like a hardcore Transformers guy, you usually would hold out and not buy the North American release of a figure, but get the Takara release. So with these Selects versions, there was no Hasbro North American version that I'm aware of. They just came out with the Takara version. So even though, again, this box is still very mysterious, like, what kid is going to want to ask for that when they see it on the shelf? TTG SO6. Where even... I don't know if the character's name is on here anywhere. I don't see a name on it anywhere other than that name. So I have two of them. So I have 6 and 2. And so what these guys are combiners. So if you're familiar with the combiner concept, it's basically one big transformer and then 4 little transformers, and you snap the little guys onto the big one as the limbs. So each character can turn into a robot and a car, but then they also turn into the limb of a bigger robot, and that's the combiner. So like Devastator being probably the most famous, but then there's also the aerial bots turn into Superion, and the Stunticons turn into Menasor, the Predacons turn into Predaking. So these guys are the Seacons, and they turn into Piranacon, which is this whole kind of aquatic Decepticon vibe. So each of the individual characters turn into like a sea monster, and then they turn into this big, a big combiner robot with like a trident or something. So he still kind of carries on the aquatic theme. Now, from what I know, these guys here, in Japan, they have different names than the American versions. And, the other weird thing about these is that these 2 were available, and I got them, and there's 2 others available for pre-order, and I have those on pre-order, so I'll eventually get them. But this is one of the combiners that has 6 characters instead of 5, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to get the other 2, because Big Bad doesn't have them up for pre-order. Hasbro's website has them as sold out, and yeah, I'm probably not going to go and pay crazy amounts for these things on eBay, so I have to kind of just hope that Big Bad eventually does maybe put them back in stock, or maybe Hasbro does. But I'm really curious to open these guys up. So maybe these will be the first things that we look at once we open everything up. Okay, so here is TTGS02. And let's pop him open. So I'll get some tape on here. Oh, and it looks like inside of the box is the kind of what I was expecting to see earlier, which is just the plain brown mailer box. It's still a little different, because this is more than we get when I normally find these Selects figures. So here you get a picture of the character as well as a picture of his alt mode, which is kind of a manta ray thing. So there you go. You get his name, Kraken. Now that was not his original name, in the 80s. So these are new names that Takara has given these characters. So this sleeve slides off of there. Not much else to see on there. So this is a little closer to what I'm used to seeing when I buy a Selects figure here. You just pop this box open. And there is the toy. Now, I'm a little surprised to see it in its alt mode, or its beast mode. Usually these figures are in robot mode. But yeah, so there you see him. He's all kind of twist tied in there, all of his accessories. So I'm going to have to work a little bit harder to open him up and show you what he looks like. So we'll do that in a second. But first, let's take a look at the other figure. So for the other figure, once we take off the outside box, this is what we get. A picture of the character as well as his alt mode, which is kind of a, I don't know, lobster, I guess. His name is Lobclaw, by the way, or Lobclaw. Interesting. So we'll slide this off. Brown box underneath. And there you go. There is Lobclaw as a Lobclaw, I guess, and with all of his weapons. So now we'll pop this guy open and we'll take a closer look at him. So here they are outside of the packaging. So both Kraken, and I'm going to call that guy Lobclaw. I know the packaging said Lobclaw, but I'm pretty sure that's a misprint, and it's not very easy to say. I will probably actually refer to these guys as their North American names. That's how I knew them. So this guy here that turns into kind of a manta ray, this is Seawing, and then this kind of lobstery guy is Nautilator. So I'm not sure why they were released with the alternate names, but that's what we got. Anyway, so you take a look at Seawing here. And you can see he kind of looks like a manta ray. He's got kind of the right shape of the face and the wings. His tail is a little underwhelming. I feel they could have given him a bit more of a tail. But what's interesting with these guys is that they are actually retools of Terracon figures. So where these guys are like sea creatures, you know, he's not necessarily supposed to be an official manta ray. That's kind of the real life sea creature he's based off of. But these guys are kind of mishmashes of, like, some of the other characters in this line are like sharks with legs and octopuses that stand upright and stuff. So, you know, they're not based on real world creatures. They're just slightly. So it's okay if this guy doesn't look quite like a real manta ray. But anyway, these figures are retools of Terracons, and the Terracons are kind of total make-believe monsters that turn into robots as well, and they form the combiner Abominus. Whereas these guys here, they form the combiner Piranacon, is what he was called in America. I think these versions, technically, if we stick with the Japanese names, he turns into a guy called King Poseidon, I think. But I'll stick with Piranacon. But anyway, it's kind of evident, like, when you look at this guy, he looks fine, I think. But knowing that he was originally a character that was kind of more of a pterodactyl character, you can see, like, for example, these legs. Those are like bird legs that are backwards. It's kind of odd that this manta ray has these backward bird legs on him. And this tail, I'm wondering, I think that was maybe originally kind of like the head for the pterodactyl characters. They might have just kind of taken Cutthroat from the Terracons and kind of flipped them upside down. I do have Cutthroat, but I can't do a complete side-by-side because I currently have my Terracons merged or combined into Abominus, and I don't really feel like taking my Abominus apart to look at the individual pieces. But anyway, so there you go. So Seawing here is a retool of Cutthroat, and you know, he's got new parts, new paint job and everything. I mean, it works. And then for Lobclaw or Nautilator, this guy is a retool of Blot, and he looks pretty different from Blot. But maybe in robot mode, I'll see the similarities a little bit more, because Blot stands more upright. He's not like a, you know, creepy crawly like this guy is. But this guy looks pretty good. I'm wondering if his mouth, yeah, okay, his mouth opens. That's cool. And his claws, yeah, claws move pretty well. Little legs on the side here. So yeah, this is him in, I guess, what we'll call lobster mode, and that works pretty well. Now, I don't have any of the original Seacons, except, at least not of these two guys. The only one I have is Tentakill. So this is the original one from the 80s. So you can see how the color scheme matches up. These guys were all kind of blues and pinks and purples. And I assume once I get these guys in robot mode, considering that they're just retools of the Terracons, which I can already vouch for are pretty good figures. They're going to be way better than the vintage figures, because the vintage Terracons and the vintage Seacons kind of sucked. Like, as a kid, I liked that they were monsters. Like this guy, like, this is what I'm talking about when he's kind of an octopus character, but not really. He's got like a squid head, and then he's got these legs and this face. It's not like a squid beak or anything. He looks almost like Merman from the Masters of the Universe. There's a lot going on here. But these guys were very simple to transform. It's basically, you do this. I don't want to break this guy, but that was basically his feet. You flip this around, there's his head, and those are his arms. That's it. So his legs are stuck together. It's just one big block. And so even though this is Tentakill, this is what the vintage 80s Seawing and Nautilator would have looked like as well. Very simple, stumpy little guys. So I'm sure these guys are going to look much better once I get them transformed. So let's do that now. Now here they are both transformed. So yeah, they're definitely better than their vintage counterparts were, I'm sure. Again, if we bring in that other guy for a second. These guys are much bigger. And where this guy had just one big block of feet and he had no elbows and he couldn't turn his head with his little micro head. These guys here fix all that. So they've got two separate legs. They bend at the knees. They can pose and like kneel, and they can bend at the elbow, and they can look around and even up and down a little bit. Lots more movement. There's just a lot more going on. These guys are pretty cool figures. And I was pretty happy with the Combiner Wars figures. So knowing that these are just retools of some figures I already have over there, I wasn't too worried about the quality of these guys, because I quite liked the Combiner figures. So we can get this guy out of here. Now for accessories, they're holding a lot of them. Both of them have this extra piece here, which is the hand. I think this piece here, it came with a lot of the Combiner figures. It can either be used as a hand, you see like the thumb there and the fingers all individually articulated, or it might be able to be used as the foot. That was the case with all the North American releases. I'm not sure if both these guys form arms as opposed to feet, because they both come with the hands. But yep, so they have those. And then Nautilator, his tail, once you take that off, there really isn't anywhere to put it. You could probably plug it into him somewhere, but it's going to look kind of odd. So that just kind of sits aside. And he also has this piece here, which looks like it could be used as a bladed weapon. Like he could hold that. But it's kind of an odd weapon, and he already has two items in his hand. This might be something that's better used for the combined mode, like maybe Piranacon uses that. Or I'm just noticing here, this axe that I do have him holding, it's got a plug on the top. You could maybe plug that in there or something. No, that doesn't work. Never mind. So that's kind of an extra piece too. So yeah, for accessories, this guy's got an axe and a gun. Now this guy's really cool. I like his head sculpt. He's got one of those faces with the kind of the visor over it, so you just really see his eyes. Yeah, color wise, he's not as flashy as some of his teammates with their pinks and their purples, but these two guys look really nice together, with their kind of baby blues and grays and blacks. It's a nice color scheme, and it does make them look distinct on the shelf. They don't look like anybody else that I have over there. And he's got a bit of kibble. Like, I don't mind like the head on the back, that works, but like the legs, they seem a little bit in your face. It'd be nice if they could maybe tuck away a little bit better than they do. But all in all, not too bad, and definitely far better than the vintage version of Nautilator. As for Seawing here, if we compare him to the original one, again, the original was just a little stump of a figure. This guy here, fully articulated. Again, nice. I think these are original head sculpts. Like, that might be a reuse of Cutthroat's head, but I'm not really sure. Accessories. So he's got these two guns. which can attach to the bottom of his fins in a couple of different ways. And they could have stayed on there when he was in his manta ray mode as well. And then he's got this other kind of rifle that he's holding there. Yeah. Now the only thing with this guy is I find this chest piece is a little out there. It almost looks like he's got like a baby strapped to his chest or something. So I wish that was maybe a little more flush. But otherwise, I don't really have any complaints about this figure. He's got a little bit of kibble too with the legs on the side there and stuff. But it's nothing too bad. So yeah, I think these guys look pretty cool. And I hope that I'm able to finish my army of Seacons at some point. So we might as well keep the Transformers theme going and take a look at the other Transformers I showed you in the introduction. So this here is Huffer. And he's the little orange truck Autobot. So he looks great. Like he looks like how he appeared in the cartoon. Because like with a lot of characters, the vintage toy had a different look, at least a different face from how the character looked in the cartoon. That was the case with Bumblebee, with Gears, with just so many of them. I'm not sure why, but they got the toy designs and they all had these visors, kind of like Optimus Prime across their face. But then the animators gave them these actual faces. So it was always a little weird to have that disconnect. So even though I do like the vintage Huffer toy with that kind of visored look, it is nice to get a version here that looks like the cartoon. So yeah, he looks great from the front. I like how his arms, that you can tell they look like steel pipes, which is straight from the vintage toy design. Now from the back, his legs are a little hollow there, and I don't love how this piece just kind of sits there. You need those pieces to stabilize them, but it does look a little weird. But otherwise, I think he looks pretty great. The way the whole cab of the truck is sitting on his back like that, that's just like the vintage toy. Yeah, so he moves well, bends at the knees, elbows, can do the splits, all that stuff. So yeah, it looks really great. For accessories, he's got a gun. So that fits in his hand nice and snug. And then this piece is kind of cool. He's also got, looks like a Riot Shield. And I'm not quite sure how he holds it, because there's those little pegs there. Maybe it plugs into his arm. Let's try that. Yeah, you can plug it in like that, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. You get some options, I guess. I think probably from the side works the best. So that's kind of cool. That's something he hasn't had before. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this dude. Now, just for a little bit of a comparison, I don't have the vintage Huffer any longer to show you. So the Huffer that's kind of been in my collection as my default Huffer is one of these third-party Transformers, and that is this guy. So you can see he shares a lot of the same design elements, these kind of like metal pipes for arms. He's got the whole cab of the truck kind of sitting on his back there. Little orange legs, purple body. The head is similar to what we're seeing on this figure here. So yeah, this was my default Huffer. Now, it's about the same size as the vintage 80s version of Huffer, but it's too small for my liking. So you can see how much smaller he is than this guy. So he seems like a real dwarf on my shelf next to all my other Transformers, because even the other characters that were that small in the 80s, like Bumblebee and stuff, I now have Bumblebee figures that are like this tall. So yeah, he looks like really small. So I'm happy that I can finally replace this guy on my shelf with this guy. Previous versions of Huffer, this is an official Hasbro release. So again, you can tell that it's Huffer, and that's an orange truck. He's got the purple face, the purple body, but he's missing some key elements, like having this kind of the windshield of the truck on his chest. That's more of an Optimus Prime thing. He's missing having that big cab over the back of him. So when this figure came out a couple of years ago, I just wasn't satisfied with this, like to display it as my go-to Huffer, which is why I felt compelled to, I think I already had this guy, but he wasn't replaced in my collection by this guy, even though he was an official release, just because he didn't look the part. I also have this Huffer. which I'm not going to bother transforming again, but this was a really weird looking design. You can see the face underneath there. This was kind of a weird stylistic design for Huffer. Even the truck looks kind of bizarre. So yeah, I have that one too. I just recently decided to take that one out of my collection. And yeah, I might have to get rid of these other two now as they're kind of redundant. I think this new Huffer really fits the bill and scratches that Huffer itch. So yeah, if you're looking for a cool Huffer, I recommend this guy. So now let's take a look at Inferno. So as I mentioned before, I had both Inferno and Grapple when I was a kid, and I loved those toys. Because a lot of the Autobots I had were the smaller guys like Gears or some of the Combiners, which are a little smaller. And even of the mid-size Transformers, of which these guys would be a group, or part of that group, it was mostly cars. So guys like Red Alert and Jazz and stuff. And my older brother Doug had most of the cars. So the fact that the only two mid-size Autobots I had was Grapple and Inferno, it really endeared these guys to me, and they seemed like really big heavies in the Autobot army because they were larger than most of my other figures and most of Doug's figures too. And they looked great. And I loved that they were kind of like twins. They shared, the way they transformed, everything was all the same. The base body was very similar, except for some differences between the crane and the ladder and all that stuff. Anyway, I loved these figures. I just wish they moved better. They were, they didn't bend at the knees, the elbows. They were very rigid. They couldn't turn their heads. And that was a bit of a bummer for me about any Transformer toy when I was a kid. So when I started collecting Transformers again as an adult in like the mid-2000s, I started with a new Bumblebee, and then I was very eager to get new versions of all my childhood favorites. And it took a very long time to get all of them. But I did eventually get this Grapple here. Let me just move him out of here for a second. So I got this Grapple, and I thought, this guy's cool. Like, he's really big. He's bulky. That's partly what I loved about the original ones, is just kind of how big they were amongst my collection. They really looked like they would take charge. This guy's bigger than a lot of my other modern Transformers. And then they repainted that guy, and I got Inferno. And again, this guy looks great. Like, you can tell he's a fire truck. Their heads are not just the exact same. So you can see this guy's got some silver on it, and just the shape of the heads are different. So they're not exact twins, which is nice that they have some distinguishing features. This guy, he's got the big hook attached to his arm, which, the old one was attached behind his head here. So I thought that was still kind of cool. It looks like a big weapon he could swing. This guy here, though, was completely missing his ladder, which was his distinguishing feature. There's no ladder on him. But he does have this weapon here, which sprays like water, or I think that's what it's supposed to do. So that's pretty cool. So I was happy with these guys on my shelf. These guys, for the last 15 years or so, have been the go-to Grapple and Inferno in my collection. But I wish they did look a little bit more like their vintage counterparts, as their vintage counterparts looked more like they did in the cartoon. I just always associate these guys with having that kind of like block around their head and stuff. So last year, when we finally got this updated version of Grapple, I was so stoked because this guy looks more like the Grapple that I had as a kid. He's got this kind of box around his head, and attached to it is the crane, the extending crane there. And yeah, that just gives me all kinds of nostalgic feels. So I still think that's a great figure. But this guy just really hit all the marks. So I was able to replace that Grapple with this guy here. And I knew it was just a matter of time before we would get an Inferno, a repaint of that guy. And sure enough, we finally got him. And yeah, I couldn't be happier. I think this guy looks amazing. I love him. So again, this is still a great figure, but he's no longer my Inferno. He can be a stand-in for another Autobot somewhere. But yeah, this is the Inferno that I grew up with. And unlike the vintage one, this guy moves. So his legs, he's got knees, he can kick, he can punch, he can swing his arms out to the side, he can do the splits. This is all stuff the vintage guy could not do, which was a huge bummer. You couldn't really play with him. And you may notice I don't transform my Transformers. Like, I'm not going to show you this guy in his truck mode the same way I didn't show you Huffer in his truck mode. I don't care about their vehicle modes, really. I just like the robot modes. I like the action figures, which is why it was such a bummer as a kid that these guys didn't move like action figures. That's why I'm pretty excited about these new lines of Transformers that don't transform, like Transformers, the Red series, and with Super 7's Ultimate line that's just coming out. So for accessories, this guy's got a few things. So he's got a gun. So it's pretty standard. It's probably even the same gun Grapple has. Yeah, so they have the same gun. And oh yeah, I didn't even talk about this though. So you see he's got the crane, he's got the ladder, and I assume it's an extending ladder here in some way. You can tell it slides out. I don't want to break it or anything, but yeah, he's got to have that ladder hanging on his back. That's classic Inferno there. So he also has a couple little attachments here, which I imagine go in his hand. So this is one of those guys that he had a hand that was actually like a hose. So you can flip his hand around there. He's got that hole, and then you can plug in his hose hand there. In the same way that Grapple, he has the option. You can give him his actual hand if I flip it around, or you can give him this hook hand. So it's really nice to have the option with both of these guys. This little piece here, I'm not sure where it attaches to him. I'll have to figure that out. And he's also got two of these, like coiled hoses or something. So they, I don't know if they attach onto his arm, or I'm sure you can plug them in anywhere, like on his legs. But I'm sure there's somewhere specific that they're supposed to go. I'll figure that out afterwards. But anyway, I'm just so stoked to have both these guys in my collection now. And as I stated at the start of the video, as much as I love Grapple, and he was very close to making my best of list this year, looking at them side by side, I think Inferno has an even better chance. His colors are just that much more striking. Simple things like his head having the yellow with the black and the silver and the blue, it just pops a little bit more. There's a few more colors going on. The way his symbol has the white outline, it pops more. So yeah, as great as this guy is, I think this guy is even better. And there you go. So there is Kingdom Inferno. Just a couple of other quick things before I go. So I looked at the instructions, and it does direct me to put the hoses on both of his legs. This here should technically go on this hand if you want to match the cartoon, and that last little attachment attaches to his head here. So there you go. You've got that little thing that you can move around. And as far as his ladder goes, it just took a little bit of force. I pulled that out so I could get the extension on there, and that should just pop in. And there you go. So there you go. There is Inferno. Okay, so that was episode 115. And to be honest, as I'm telling you this, I don't know what I just showed you. I literally just did the bit where I said, I just ordered these. And now I'm filming the ending. Now I'm going to go shoot the middle bit. So that will determine. So I'll show you these guys outside the box. And, I'll probably show you some of these other guys outside the box. But depending on time, I might have to cut it off, and I might not show you everything I have here. So I showed you some. Did I show you all? I don't know. I hope you enjoyed the video regardless. And if there was anything that I showed you in the packaging that I didn't show you outside of the packaging, just stay tuned to my next episode, as I'll probably show it to you then. But yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, the subscribe button, leave me comments below. I always appreciate that. And yeah, that's it, I guess. So I'll see you next time.